Hi there, I'm Anna with VSAC, and I'm here talking to Trevor Gilmore, who's going to tell us more about his work. So, Trevor, I'll have you start by introducing yourself and saying what you do and where you work.
All right. Well, I'm Trevor Gilmore. I currently work in Seattle, Washington, and I am the term I would use for people outside the company is a recruiter at Google. My official term is a channel specialist, and I can talk about what that means when you want me to.
Perfect. That might make in the next question. So, the next piece is could you just tell us a little bit more about what your job entails?
Yeah. So, in general, recruiting is finding people that companies want to hire um, because they need those people, because they want those people. But essentially, people work all over the world and sometimes they apply, but sometimes you have to encourage them to apply. And that's a lot of what I do. Um, so, externally, I tell people I'm a recruiter because I find people and talk to them and say like, hey, these are the jobs at Google. We'd really like you to apply. Uh, my technical term channel specialist means that I work on the front end. So if you think of an interview process, there's lots of steps. There's submitting your resume, but then there's the actual interviews. And then if you do well, they give you a job offer and there's negotiations. I work on the front. I look for people that we're targeting for roles that, for whatever reason, there's just not enough people in the world to fill. And once I find them, I convince them to apply, or sometimes they convince me, and I get them started in that process.
Awesome. Thanks. Can you talk a little bit more about your educational and career background and how you ended up in this role?
Yeah, recruiting's a funny one, I will say. There's no recruiting degree, and people come from lots of different backgrounds. Funnily enough, there's quite a lot of people who were teachers
Mhm.
that are now recruiters that I know. There's also a lot of athletes, especially people who were like in track or soccer, cross country runners. They tend to end up in recruiting. And I have some theories about that.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that recruiting's a lot like, you know, running sprints and getting faster and faster for the big race. It's a long kind of process of getting better for that big win of hiring someone. But I actually graduated from high school, and then I went to college for Japanese language and political science. So I was a foreign language and political science major, which was pretty cool. Um, and then during college, I did a part-time job working in shoe sales. So I sold shoes at kind of a mid-range store. If you've ever been to like an Aldo, it's kind of like that. But I'd never been to one of those before I got to London, so you probably haven't been to one. Um, and then because I studied Japanese, I wanted to go work in Japan. So I went over there and I taught English for about a year and a half, decided that teaching wasn't for me. And then I moved into human resources, which is a funny way of saying all the stuff you have to do to employ people. I specifically worked on helping companies move their employees from place to place. This is just a long way of saying I did a lot of stuff. There was quite a few things before I got to recruiting. Um, and then, yeah, how I got into recruiting, I knew that I liked jobs that were people facing. I knew I liked jobs where I got to talk to a lot of people, and jobs where I got to help people. I like to kind of help people get what they want or get to where they want to go. I moved back to Seattle after living away from here for a long time. And I had done a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a couple of different jobs. And I just started talking to people around me saying, hey, I'm interested in sales and recruiting. And eventually, through a connection, they said, oh, my cousin works in recruiting. I'll introduce you to them. And I ended up in recruiting. So it's not the most satisfactory answer. It's not like doctor, or you go to school, you get degree for doctor, and then you become doctor. It's kind of more like, ooh, this is interesting. Let's explore it. And I got here.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks. Um, what are some of your favorite things about your job? I feel like you spoke to it a little bit already, but you wanna
Yeah,
that?
I really I like talking to different people.
Mhm.
I love hearing kind of what they want and what drives them. Um, so I'll talk to, let's say I'm recruiting for a computer developer, just really simply. I'll talk to some people who are currently in a computer developer job. They like it exactly as it is, and they want to do the exact same job.
Mhm.
Or I'll talk to some people who are doing a computer developer job, but they want to do something a bit different at Google, maybe more project based,
Mhm.
which would be like less writing out lines of code and more um, focused on things like I do, for instance. And so they want to change.
Mhm.
Or maybe I'm talking to someone who is doing something close to developer, but they want to change and come into developer. So I talk to people that have all these different things that they want to do, and I get to help them to an extent. You know, I can't make someone who doesn't know how to program at all a programmer,
Mhm.
but I can help people who are on the right track get to where they want to go. I also get to work with our different teams that are hiring here and help them not just find the people that they want to find, but understand who's out there.
Mhm.
You know, everyone wants, for every job in the world, they want the best, the brightest, the most perfect person. Um, and sometimes that means they don't realize that there's so much more out there.
Mhm.
There's so many different types of people and candidates. There's so many different ways that people can do the job and bring different things to the team. And, you know, if we're talking about computer developers, their job is to make the programs we use. They make Google Maps, they make Gmail. They
Mhm.
don't think about hiring and those processes and what the graduating class of 2020 looks like.
Mhm.
And so my job is to also educate them and say, okay, well, this is what it actually looks like. This is what you're going to see when you employ people. Have you thought about candidates like this? And then lastly, you know, a big thing that's going on at my company right now is we're pushing to make our workforce more representative of America. You know, the company should look kind of like America looks. And so getting to be part of that and getting to, you know, give people who might be overlooked because of structural reasons better visibility and to help them along with that process is it's pretty rewarding.
That's awesome. What are some of the things you find the most challenging about your work?
You know, one thing with recruiting is it can sometimes feel a little repetitive, and that's why I like to talk about the track stars
Mhm.
kind of being in there and they run the races because I have a general job that I'm focused on for however long. Um, and generally speaking, once I'm focused on that one job, while I'm looking for different people,
Mhm.
I'm still looking for the kind of same person.
Mhm.
There's like a general profile that I'm interested in or that I'm looking at. And so if you stay on one, or for me anyway, if I stay on one job too long, after a while it's less exciting. I don't feel like I'm learning anything. You know, the first few weeks when I get onto a new job profile,
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out like, okay, well, they need this skill.
Mhm.
But does that mean they need exactly this skill? Or if they can program in this computer language, could that mean that they can also program in this language? And
Mhm.
oh, how do I find them? And how many years do they need? Like there's a lot of problem solving and figuring things out. And then when I talk to people, especially when I'm on a new job, it's usually the first time I've talked to people like this. So
Mhm.
it's really interesting to learn from them and to hear what they have to say. If I've been looking at the same job for a year, yeah,
Mhm.
it's time for a change. And so being able to advocate for myself and say, hey, I want to do something different.
Mhm.
Um, you know, one thing I do miss about school, I will say, is that at the end of the school year, you go to the next level and it's all new. And sure, sometimes it's frustrating because you're like, I just did math last year. Like, I don't need any more math.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, like, it's constantly new and refreshing. So that's probably a big challenge. The other one is both the people I work with, the people that are hiring people and the people I'm looking to hire, sometimes don't quite understand my role. I would love to get everyone a job. Like, I would love to get everyone a job. I'm not always able to. If I'm looking for senior computer developers with 5 or 6 years experience, and I'm talking to someone with only 1 or 2, I probably can't hire them. I'd love to. They're probably super smart if I'm talking to them, but if they don't quite have enough experience, I'm stuck because I'm trying to fill that role. And I hate disappointing them. And then with the hiring managers, sometimes they want a really, specific type of candidate, specific person. And if someone that I'm working for wants that person, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, other companies want them. So it's really competitive. And sometimes we lose out. Or sometimes we find someone that's great, but they decide they don't want to come to Google. And so then the person I'm working for, the person that's hiring that person is like, well, why can't you find them? And I'm like, well, it takes time. So that can be frustrating. At the same time, if it didn't have those challenges, it would be boring, and I probably wouldn't do it.
That's great. Can you walk us through what a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah. So one of the nice things about recruiting in the tech industry is we generally have flexible hours. So some of my colleagues like to get in at 7 a.m. Other colleagues like myself are a bit later, like a 9 or 10. But when I get in, the first thing I do is I go into my email and I look to see if any candidates that I'm working with have gotten back to me. Because my number one priority is someone that's applied, someone that's in process for my jobs. Because they're kind of numero uno. You're the person I want to get hired at Google. I have to make sure that I'm responding to you. So I respond to them, just update them. Sometimes I have to say, hey, we don't have any updates, but I'm still here. And then after that, the day can go a bunch of different ways. A really classic day is I'll spend anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4 hours looking for candidates in different ways. Depending on the role where I might search for them is different. I might be looking at applicants, people that actively applied to Google. I might be looking for people not at Google who haven't applied to reach out and see if maybe they will apply. And that's fun, especially kind of when I get really into a groove. It's like a treasure hunt almost. Like you're going through and you're like, oh, this one looks good. And oh my gosh, no one at our company has ever talked to them before. Why not? Like they would be perfect. But I do a bunch of other things. A big initiative I got to work on was I moved on to a new job profile, a new job that we'd never used my team for to hire. And so not only was I kind of making everything up as I went, as my team grew, I got to train all the people that came after me. And so it's not super efficient to like start from scratch each time. Plus, eventually I was going to leave. So I got to make the entire course. I got to design how we train these people. So when they join my team, what are the courses they take? What are the timelines? How long before they can reach out to candidates? How long should it take them to get their first hire and everything? And that was really fun because it was just different from my day-to-day work. So there's a lot of projects like that. And then some days I'll sit down and meet with the people that are hiring and try to talk to them about what we're doing, what our strategies look like, if we need to change. Other days I'll be setting up interviews or I'll be reviewing interviews. And always I'm looking to make sure kind of at the end of my day, have I reached out to all the people I need to reach out to? Candidates, internal customers, are my projects on time? And do I have enough people interviewing that we're going to hit our hiring goals? If every 4 people I interview, 2 of them will move forward and I need to hire 6 people, do I have enough interviews. This is where math comes in, even though it's not a math heavy job.
Mhm.
There's still, there's a lot of different things there. And it's nice. I like where I work right now because I get to go home at the end of the day. Like, it's fun to work hard. It's fun to be really busy during the day, but I do want to go home and like watch TV, play with my dog. And so end of the day, sometime between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., I leave.
Awesome. Thanks. What do you think would make someone a good fit for this kind of work? You talked a little bit about it, but anything to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be like the life of the party. You don't have to be a crazy people person. I mean, yes, if you are someone that can just walk up to anyone and start a conversation, that's usually a good sign. But some of my colleagues seem really quiet at first. They might not just jump in and talk to anyone at a party. The thing that makes us the same, though, is when we do start talking to someone, we're interested. We're interested in learning more about them and seeing if we can get them to the right place. Also, someone that likes problem solving. If you're looking for someone with a really specific, special background, there's probably not a lot of people like that. So how are you going to find them? I've heard some crazy things. I remember someone talking once about Googling a certain skill set and putting cats and looking for people with cat photos because they were so like, how am I going to find this person? All right, let's try anything. And then through looking at people that posted cat photos that also had this skill set, they found someone. So it's not just rinse and repeat. It can be really creative. And then lastly, there does need to be a little bit of that enjoyment of practice to get the right type of thing, to get the right result. I'll use that sports analogy again. Full disclosure, I didn't do a lot of sports. But the person who, doesn't mind going out and doing a bunch of golf swings on the driving range so they can go play golf really well, or going out and doing your track exercises to get faster for the big race. You need a little bit of that. If you want to always be doing something really exciting and you're not okay with a little bit more quiet time to get those big wins, it can get a little bit hard. It can be a little challenging. And that's where I see people oftentimes moving away into other areas of the company.
Thanks. If like a current middle or high school student was interested in this kind of work, is there anything you would recommend that they do right now to explore it, like volunteer work or classes or projects or part-time jobs? Research. Join the track team.
So join the track team. Disclaimer, you don't have to, but I will say there's a fair amount of former track stars that recruit. So if you like track and it sounds interesting, like, go for it. I promise it's probably a pretty good chance it'll work out. Any class that has you speak, or any group that has you speak. So one of the clubs I did in high school was called Future Business Leaders of America. There's a couple other similar clubs. FCCLA, I can't remember what that one stands for. 4-H, actually, because I know they have a lot of presentations. We had a bunch of other cool ones. JSA, which was Junior State of America. We had Boys and Girls State, which is like a mock government program. There's a lot of different extracurricular clubs, as well as just normal clubs, maybe, or normal classes. Maybe you have a public speaking class, or maybe in your English class, you do presentations on different things. Anything that gets you comfortable talking and explaining in front of other people. When you can explain something to 4 or 5 people you've never met before, or your entire class of 30, it makes you so much better talking one-on-one. And then, honestly, any kind of retail job where you interact with people. Like, taking orders at a drive-thru at McDonald's is 100% applicable to what I do. Like, yeah, it's a different job, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit easier to help someone know if they want to get a number one or a number two at McDonald's, but you're still talking to a customer, interacting, trying to be a normal person, be friendly, and help them figure out what they want. So honestly, even a job like that, working at Walmart, working at a shoe store, being a checker, let's say a maple farm, is that what they're called, has like a tourist facility, and you are a ticket taker. Like all those types of things are things that maybe more of a high schooler can do. And then lastly, talking about internships or volunteering. Again, hospital greeter, people that help out at hospitals. That's a really common one for college, I know. But even if one of your parents or your friend's parents or someone works in kind of a business setting, maybe they do sales for a lumber company or an agricultural company, or maybe I know there are a few technology firms in Burlington, going in and just seeing what they do. Sometimes you don't even have to do the job and work there and volunteer, just kind of watching and seeing what they do and just thinking to yourself, oh, do I like this? The other thing I will say too is don't think that you have to decide on something right now. Explore things. I've changed jobs a lot, and all my jobs have related to my other jobs. So don't think, well, I don't want to be a recruiter, so none of that works. Because if you go do these things and you think, well, recruiting sounds boring, but actually I really like sales, or oh, I really like customer service, or I love the restaurant industry, you'll find things you like. And then maybe 5 years after doing that, you'll become a recruiter. Maybe you'll start as a recruiter, go into restaurants. Maybe you'll be a recruiter for the rest of your life. Who knows? But again, anything where you're talking to someone who isn't your family members or your friends will help, definitely. Not just in recruiting, but in almost any job.
That's great. And you already said, there's not a degree in recruiting that you can get, but is there any sort of education or training that you think a student might want to think about down the road to help them succeed in this kind of work?
Yeah. In general, there's degrees. They might call them arts and humanities, or they might call them social sciences. So for instance, a business degree can be really good. Communications is a really good one. But you might also hear other things like sociology or political science, like I did, any foreign languages. And then even like an English degree or a non-science degree is totally relevant to this type of work. Now, I also have colleagues that have degrees in science and math. And then, like I said, an elementary school teacher, I've seen a lot of those, but also high school teachers. There's a lot of similar skills in teaching. So I'm not saying go get a teaching degree and then become a recruiter, but if you're drawn towards teaching, don't think that if you get a teaching degree and you don't like teaching, you're stuck in it. Those skills that you learn there are really transferable. What is most important, and I think there are plenty of really smart people without college degrees, but you need some kind of further education because lots of people want to do this job. And so doing that further education shows them, hey, I can commit to something I can study. Maybe it's 2 years of community college followed by 2 years of advanced college. Maybe it's technical school. Maybe it's training in the military. Most common is 4-year college, but something after high school that shows like, hey, I'm willing to learn. I can study. I can be motivated. And the great thing is you don't have to study something boring. You can study something that's fun. Like I have a Japanese degree. I used it for a couple of years. I don't use it very much anymore, but I really liked learning Japanese. And parts of my degree are relevant to my job, and parts of my degree just show my employer, hey, I can sit down, do hard work, and follow through. And I gotta have a lot of fun and go to Japan while doing it. So yeah, college is fun. I promise.
That's great. Anything else you want to share or add?
There's so much, but at the same time, I'm trying to think of what would have been most useful for me. And I just wish someone would have told me that it's awesome to explore,
Mm,
and that after college and as an adult, you can change your mind.
mhm,
You can change your mind. If you don't have your dream job at 23, you can get it later. And if you have what you think is your dream job at 23 and it doesn't work out, you can change jobs. It's
mm,
a little bit scarier because it's easier to change class in school or college than it is to change jobs. But you have so many choices. There's so much stuff out there. I mean, I've been working as an adult for, oh my gosh, like 10, 11 years now. And I still find out about new jobs all the time. I'm
mm,
like, that's a job that they pay people to do.
hmm, mhm,
Um, so just explore, get really excited, and try out things. Maybe you'll fail at it. Maybe you won't like it. But for everything that I failed at, it helped me realize what I like and
mhm,
got me to something that I did really well at.
hmm,
So that sounds a little cheesy, I know,
hmm,
but doing bad at something has been as useful as doing well at something for me.
hmm. That is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.